I would eat the last panda if I could have all of the money we have spent on panda conservation put back on the table. It might surprise you that this actual quote comes from an actual wildlife conservationist, Chris Packin. It definitely shocked the wildlife conservation community back when he said it originally, with people often criticizing Packin's statement as being daft and irresponsible. Packin himself later apologized for the statement, but still defended his idea of panda obliteration. I really upturned the apple cart with what I have said, and I'm sorry I upset people. But I am glad it has raised a debate, and that was always my intention. I don't hate pandas. I love cuddling animals. I love all animals. So what does Packin exactly have against a panda? What was the debate that he was trying to raise? Why is someone who has devoted their entire life to wildlife conservation, to saving endangered species, suddenly be an advocate for the extinction of a particular species that he claims to have no animosity towards? The panda is, after all, not only one of the symbols of China, it is the symbol, emblem, and poster child of the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, which is an international non-governmental organization that deals with issues regarding conservation, research, and restoration of the environment, taken from their website. In particular, deal with saving endangered species, obviously. And panda, while it is an endangered species, humans weren't alone in making it endangered. In fact, much of the blame can be placed on the panda itself due to its dietary habits that are unnatural, its very peculiar reproductive habits, and those facts combined with the fact that its habitat is constantly under threat because it lives in one of the most densely populated countries in the world, make pandas living in the wild kind of a pipe dream at this point. And this pipe dream kind of costs millions of dollars in wildlife conservation funds, and that's a limited resource that could be going towards other animals that have a habitat and that don't endanger themselves. And while pandas perhaps can't be blamed for their fact that they live in China, the most densely populated country in the world, they can be blamed for their dietary habits to an extent. Well, there's a phrase I think that goes, "You are what you eat." Pandas are definitely the exception to this phrase. According to the Smithsonian Book of Giant Pandas, pandas are actually carnivores, not the herbivores they have tricked you all into thinking of. Carnivores, well, you can probably argue that an animal should be based on, its dietary classification should be based on what it actually eats. This is not how it works. Animal's dietary classification comes from genetics. Panda has carnivore-specific genes which code for a carnivore-specific digestive system. This means that they derive little energy off 99% of their diet, which is bamboo. The other 1% they tends to be grass, sometimes rodents, sometimes small birds, but unfortunately hunting animals requires energy, and they don't get energy because what they eat doesn't contain energy. Bamboo also has almost no nutritional value whatsoever, and doesn't even have protein, which is the most important thing any animal can have in its diet. As a result, pandas have to keep their digestive tracts rather full all day, so they must eat they must eat bamboo all day, every day. They eat about 30 pounds of bamboo a day. This causes them to subsequently defecate around 40 times a day. But their dietary and bathroom habits aren't the only thing affected by this. The most important factor that bamboo has on the panda is how it affects their behavior. Pandas, due to the low energy input of their diet, will restrict their movement. They avoid moving a lot in any given day, and they also avoid steep terrain, which is rather difficult when you live in mountainous forests. Interactions between fellow pandas is also limited due to the fact that they move around a lot, and even if they do come into contact with each other, they usually limit social interactions, because that kind of takes energy too. Which leads to the main reason pandas are being extinct. Not only do they not come into contact with each other, and if they do come into contact with each other, they tend to not play with each other. They also are really, really notoriously horrible for procreating, as you probably all know. It makes headlines whenever pandas do succeed in having a baby all the time. Why is it that it does make headlines? Well, pandas are pretty much biologically incompatible when it comes to reproducing. According to Chen Yukin, director of the Fuju Zoological Society, male and female pandas have several basic reproductive incompatibilities. First of all, panda genitals do not match in size. The male's penis is far too short, and the female's vagina is far too deep. This means that positioning of the pandas must be absolutely perfect in order for the male to impregnate the female. That is, of course, assuming that the male even tries to impregnate the female to begin with. Males do not instinctively know how to breed. This problem is also compounded by the fact that females only come into heat 72 hours out of the year once a year. For those who aren't aware, coming into heat is basically when an animal can become fertilized, like that's when they're supposed to mate. Females only have a 3-day window for this to happen once a year. And in the wild, the fact that pandas almost rarely interact with each other makes this kind of difficult. Actually, it makes it an evolutionary death sentence, in my opinion. To make things worse, females have no way of showing that they are in heat. So you combine the fact that males don't know how to instinctively mate with the fact that females come into heat 3 days out of the year and have no way of showing it. How have pandas been around for 3 million years? I have no idea. Also, if a male even tries to make an advancement by some act of God on a female, females hate males. They're extremely irritated by males and very selective of their mates. Panda interaction usually ends in the pandas fighting each other and injuring each other. The point of the exercise is to increase the population of the species, not to decrease it. Due to panda procreation issues, there have been a variety of creative techniques, I'd say, to get them to procreate in captivity. Most of these are taken from various BBC articles. One such method has been interspecies pregnancy, which basically involves taking a panda embryo clone and putting in another species. This is a very expensive method and a very not so effective method since it hasn't yet succeeded in producing a live birth, only dead panda embryos and fetuses. But some more creative methods. At the Wulong Nature Reserve, Chinese scientists attempted giving panda males anti-impotence drugs, which you might know as Viagra. This method was very unsuccessful, although it was employed on a very limited scale. Several other zoos also tried it, but it didn't seem to have an effect. And something that did seem to have an effect was at a zoo in Bangkok, researchers attempted to get pandas to mate via having them watch panda breeding pairs watch panda porn. That's exactly what it sounds like. They actually had the panda breeding pairs watch pandas mate in order to get them to mate. And they said that it seemed to have some effect, but this was coming from the same interview where they were talking about the Viagra and they were comparing it to the Viagra. And given the Viagra had no effect, I'm not sure if this was very effective, but it is something that's actually done in several zoos. The primary method for panda reproduction in captivity is obviously artificial insemination, but this is obviously complicated by the female heat cycle and the fact that male pandas have no sex drive. And the fact that in captivity animals have even lower sex drive, so it's kind of hard to get male donors. There's usually only one donor per several facilities. This has led to a very rapid decrease in panda diversity within zoos across the world, and even inbreeding in some cases. And while freezing of sperm and liquid nitrogen has led to a greater variety of donors, since zoos can trade sperm and stuff and get a better variety of pandas, this has no effect on pandas in the wild. You can't artificially inseminate pandas in the wild or go around doing this. It takes constant hormonal monitoring and lots of expensive stuff to do, and it's just impossible to do in the wild. The money that the WWF has spent on reproduction research in captivity should have been spent on buying and protecting habitats in China, which were threatened by population explosions and whatnot. Even the WWF themselves have said that there is not enough land for these animals to live on anymore. In an interview conducted in September 2009, former WWF trustee and conservationist David Bellamy reflected those statements about his frustration with WWF. When I was a WWF trustee, I begged them to buy chunks of land in which these animals lived, not just go on spending millions on rearing pandas in captivity. You can't release them back into the wild if there's no wild left for them, and you shouldn't rear animals just to put them into cages. It would appear that pandas' futures tend to just remain in cages or in captivity and other research facilities, and is it really just worth pouring millions into a species that can't exist in the wild anymore? Especially if pandas don't seem to have any capabilities of making their population come back. So how long should a doctor keep a patient on life support if that patient is expending many resources that could go to other patients that could be saved? How long are we going to keep the panda on life support before we have to cut it and save other species? And it's unfortunate that human intervention has destroyed pandas' habitats, and that's the main reason they're never going to be able to bloom like they used to. But it's also human intervention that's saving pandas from themselves at the moment. They have cornered themselves into an evolutionary cul-de-sac on their own accord, and without environment to support them, I don't see a point in justifying saving them any longer when they take up so many resources and so many millions of dollars every year in keeping them in captivity and trying to keep their populations up in just captivity.